Hello, this is Ron Brown. We're just closing out a quadruple witching day and options on the 21st of May, and I'm going to do a quick update and take a look at what the market actually did today. We're closing positive. The index has been all over the indexes have been all over the place today, as you would expect on a day like this, but everything's squared away, and now it looks like the NASDAQ comp is going to close up 100 points or right at it. And it was down most of the day. I'll show you a chart here in a second. Anyway, as always, any stock index or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. You heard the closing bell, and what I'm going to do is go into my menu and do an update, and I'm going to update and include the data from thinkorswim. I'm going to let it do a full update, so that's going to take several minutes. I'll get this out of here. And while this is doing that, I'll bring up a chart of the QQQ. This is a 5-minute chart, and this was the overnight session. You can see where it opened down here at the 474 level, traded up here to 477, came back down to 474. Then it got up around 478, 479, somewhere in there, and it just digested that from 11:20 until this bar took off, and that happened at 10 till 4 Central Time. You can see all the volume that came in to this index during the last 10-15 minutes. So the index is closed on a strong note. It looked pretty bleak, but on these quadruple witching days, this is the kind of action we normally see. If you don't know what quadruple witching is, I just put this into Microsoft Bing, and then the Copilot came back with the answer. This happens 4 times a year on the third Friday, March, June, September, December. And all 4 of these different instruments expire on the same day. Stock index futures, stock index options, stock options, and single stock futures. Consequently, there's generally a lot of volume, and you just saw the volume spike on that chart. It says increased trading volumes and intraday volatility are common on the key market exchanges. The last hour of trading is known as the quadruple witching hour. A lot of money changes hands on days like this, and anyway, I'm going to let the HGSI go ahead and finish updating, and then I'll get back to that. Okay, it's been updated. Take this off. And I'm going to go into the designer, and I'm going to go into my user groups. I'm going to start in the market analysis user groups in this market insight ETFs. Click on the warehouse view, and then I'm going to go down up to my top-down market analysis. And this is what happened today. Now, all this data comes from thinkorswim, and it's available immediately after the market closes. And then HGSI goes through all of its calculations to come up with the numbers which are shown in the warehouse view. So you can see that most of these sectors and ETFs were down, but some were up by the end of the day. Communications sector was up 0.8. It was the biggest gainer. Consumer discretionary was up 0.4. NASDAQ Composite ETF which is the OANQ, was up 0.3. QQQ was up the same amount. And the dollar index was up. Technology sector was up barely by the end of the day, but it was up. And then oil was up 1/10, and the rest of them were down. The biggest loser was, looks like, Silver I Trust and metals and mining, which have been really strong. And it looks like gold was down a little bit today, too. I'm going to bring up a gold chart here. This is a weekly chart. I'm going to go to a just plain daily chart. You can see that it's had a really nice run. Let's bring up a weekly chart too. Now, just because there was a little pullback today, it certainly doesn't mean the trend is ending. For this to be the end of a trend, we'd need these candles to form a third lower low. This is a one lower low, 1 day lower low. So the trend is still strong, and if you use weekly charts, you can see how strong this trend is. Now I'm going to go down to the silver, and you can see that this trend is up, not nearly as strong, and it's really been a lot sloppier. And in this one, we'll have to wait and see, but I'll put some lines on here. So this low, this would be the first lower low because it took out the low from the prior day. This would be the second lower low here. And then the third lower low would be right here. So this could be a trend change on the daily chart, but it won't be a trend change on the weekly chart for silver. So just out of curiosity on Monday, see if silver continues to go down, but it would have to go down quite a bit for a trend change on the weekly. I'm going to look at this NASDAQ Composite ETF. And you can see that the trends have clearly been down, or the trend has clearly been down, both on the weekly and the daily. Now there's nothing clearly defined here at all because of this choppiness. I would say for the first higher high to be established, it's going to have to take out this high from yesterday, which would be the first higher high, and then it would have to continue to take out a couple more highs. Let's take a look at the QQQ. Very similar chart, really directionless in here, as the market is trying to decide if it's going to go up or down. If I drop down to the daily chart here, you can see there's a pocket pivot today, but the three, it did cross over today. You see the 0 in this column right here. It doesn't show up. It didn't cross over much. So I'll make this full screen. There it is. There's a little green dot there. But this is the micro trend, and it would have to start building on this. It's just really directionless now. Okay, I'm going to go back up, get a basic chart, and I'm going to drop down to the major market indexes. This is equal dollar weighting, and you can see that using equal dollar weighting, a lot of the indexes were up today. In fact, some were up. Here's the NASDAQ 100. It was up 1.1% using equal dollar weighting. Dow was up 0.4. The NASDAQ Composite was up 1.1. So that looks a little bit better. Now let's drop down here to number 3, the demand supply. And this shows that even though The indexes were up today. The decliners, the advancers, whoops, I need to make that red rather than yellow. The advancing issues were less than the declining issues, so it was negative all the way through. So that doesn't instill a lot of confidence going into next week. Even though the indexes, the major indexes closed up, the internals were weak. Relatively weak, I should say. Okay, let's take a look at some market charts. I'm going to use the S&P 1500 since it's the broadest, and I'll go into my HGSI index charts. And let's just run through this. You can see that the E accumulation had been falling as the market was building a little bit of momentum to the upside here. But today, or the last 2 days, it's flattened out and started turning back up again. This is A and B. I'm sorry, D and E, and this is A and B. They look a little bit better, but if you look at the fan, even though there was a decent volume day, and you would expect a decent volume day on quadruple witching, you can see this is just in a real congestion area, and the fan is down. I'm not going to spend any time on this. You can look at this chart yourself and look at the rotation of accumulation. And here's Chaikin. You can see it's still below the zero line on money flow. And accumulation is still below the midpoint. So it's on D distribution right now. It's not E, it's on D, so it has improved. Here's the advanced decline line for the S&P 1500. And you can see that it was rallying here, especially on these 2 days right here. Then a pullback and then rallied a little bit here again, but now it's turned down again. This is a percentage above the 20, 30, 50, and 200-day moving averages. And you can see that these turned down again the past 2 days. They were going up. And I'm going to zoom out on this. I just want to show you that when we have a really strong rally, like coming off this low here, I'll put my crosshair on. You can see what happens here. These will all start shooting up simultaneously. Even this one, the percent above the 200, and then it moves away from the moving average when we have a strong rally. Look where we are now. Just tried to get up to the moving averages and then failed. Okay, I'll move down to the next one. Potential buy-sell. We had a potential buy here. Not really, because all of these have to be green, and you can see the force 13 was still negative. But yellow means that most of the indicators, all but one indicator, are positive. And then on this day, you can see that the force 2 turned negative again. And 2 days ago, we had a tentative or a weak buy signal. I say weak because the volume, the advancers versus decliners were somewhere between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1. They didn't get up to 5 to 1. With this chart, to have a really strong day, it has to be 5 to 1 on both the advancers and decliners versus decliners in the advancing volume versus declining volume. And that looked like we were on the way, but you can see it just really hasn't followed through. So now we're in this holding pattern here, looking for market direction. There was a stopping volume signal today. Okay, moving on. Same thing without the moving averages. And here, this is just a different view of the advanced decline line and also the percent above the 50-day moving average, percent of stocks in the S&P 1500. Going down, here's that stopping volume again. The short-term trend did change to up here for a few days. It's still up, but you can see looking at the candle charts, really it's just in a congestion area. Just another AD line with all the information right up here. Advancing issues versus declining issues. Here are the actual numbers and the minus number. Minus 582 decliners over advancers. Force indexes, both down up here. And then the McClellan index, you can see that it was really moving up nicely, and now it's turned down again. And here is my accumulation chart. Just a different version of the accumulation chart. When this green bar continues up, it will turn, if it continues up, it'll turn to yellow like this, and then about the time it crosses over, or slightly before, it'll turn to green up here, going from C to B accumulation. And finally, this is just a weekly trend chart. And you can see that it's in D distribution up here. I pointed out before, these are white over here because VPA doesn't start calculating until we have 120 periods of data over here, so that's why. Okay, I'm going to go back to a base chart. I'll just leave it on here, and I'm going to do one more thing and then end this video. All of the stocks are updated today because I went through that full update, and let's just go down here, and I'm going to go to a scan I call my market leaders. There's 147 of them. And the fan has to be up, trading at least 500,000 shares, cannot be any lower than down 5% from the 52-week high, outperforming the S&P. I'm leaving out acquisition and investment companies, and the last close has to be above 5, and they have to be into an industry group. So let's just bring this up, and you can get a quick read on what the leaders are, what groups they're in: midstream, precious metal and mining, integrated utilities, and utility networks. A lot of risk-off groups, I would say. A lot of dividend-yielding stocks and so on. So that's a quick look at the leaders, and I'm going to just use my ranking module, and I'm set on Wilder relative strength 14 weeks. You set this right here and put 14 in. With testing, I've found that these are some of the strongest stocks. And what you're going to find in this index are several stocks that have been bought out and they just have not been taken out of the database, like this one right here. These will all be eliminated automatically. So don't think anything of it when you see a chart like this. Now this is VeriSign. You can see that this has really been a beautiful chart and a leader. And it continues to go up. If I'm not mistaken, I think Warren Buffett was buying this stock somewhere down here. Okay, here's another buyout. Here's McKesson. Strong stock. Another buyout. There's several of these. And unfortunately, there's no way to filter them out. So you just have to live with them until they're gone. And like I said, when the deals are consummated, they automatically come out of the database. Now here's a gold stock. Look at that. It's still a nice way to look for leading stocks, and you can find some beautiful charts in here and get on some of these if they haven't gone too far. Now these all have a lot of green in here, as you can see. If I go down to the bottom, there's a lot of red in here. These are still leaders, but they're the weakest, some of the weakest leaders. Okay, I just wanted to show you that. And another thing you can do, in addition to looking at the leaders, if you want to go into my user smart groups, I have under my name, I have a list of stocks here called CanSlim type stocks. These are stocks with good earnings growth, and you can see there's a bunch of them, 163 after today. So let's just do the relative strength trick. And there's that Alamos Gold. And if I look in here, I'm going to find stocks with good earnings growth. Look at the revenue growth and the earnings growth. This one is also in the market leaders. Look at this one. Look at these growth numbers in here and the revenue numbers. Let's look at a weekly chart of that. It took off here from around the $48 mark not that many weeks ago, and it's been climbing ever since. This is a Chinese auto company. Let's look at the statistics on it. You can see the earnings are negative, but the growth is very positive here, both on the revenue side and on the earnings side. And this had a nice run, but it's pulled back now. It's in a short-term downtrend. Here's another mining stock. Look at these numbers. Anyway, those are just a couple of ideas where you can look for strong stocks in a iffy market. It's a tough market, but there are opportunities. That's all I'm going to do today. I'm gone tomorrow, so I wanted to get something out early in the morning, something that I recorded on Friday. Thank you for listening. Have a good weekend, and hopefully we'll get some direction on this market one way or the other next week.